What's happening YouTube? It's Simon 466 Cards, and today we're going to talk about CardsHQ, which is the new hobby shop being opened by Jeff Wilson of Sports Card Investor. His store is scheduled to open February the 1st. I'm releasing this video on January 31st, so depending on when you watch this video, it should be right around the time that he's opening the store. And the reason why his shop is interesting to me is of the way that he has set up his business, and specifically his card business. So I just want to talk through it and why I think it's interesting and why I think there might be a challenge to his business. And whether or not that challenge is a big challenge or small challenge remains to be seen, but to me it's the biggest challenge he'll face as a card shop owner. So let's talk about what his cards business model is going to actually be. We're going to keep it very high level. On the single side, he's going to buy singles from other people, dealers, wherever. He's going to sell those singles in his store. And then he said that after a period of about 30 days, because he wants to keep his inventory fresh, he will sell any cards that don't sell in store or within the 30 days online. And whether that means Whatnot or Fanatics Live or on eBay remains to be seen, but that's the general model. Now, he's also going to sell wax, obviously. So he's going to get wax from distributors and manufacturers and then sell that wax in store as well. Not sure if he's also going to do the 30-day thing for wax. I will assume not, but for this discussion, it doesn't really matter, as you will see in a bit. So these are his three main card revenue streams, right? And obviously there are other revenue streams he has in store, from the breaking stuff and that kind of thing. But for card specific, these are the three card revenue streams, right? So it's selling cards in stores, selling cards online after the 30 days, and then selling wax in the store. But to me, the part about singles is the piece that's most interesting to me. And the reason why it's so interesting is because of the sheer quantity that will be in his store. He has single displays that will be 14 football fields long. This is straight from his Instagram account. I'm not making this up. So that's 14 football fields of showcases or display cases, right? And he's saying he wants to turn his inventory around every 30 days. So what that means is he wants to sell 168 football fields worth of singles every year. And I don't know about you, but for me, that seems like a lot. It's a lot of cards being turned around and sold every year, being bought and sold. Forget about his ability to even buy 14 football fields worth of singles every month. I'm just going to talk about the selling part. Maybe there's a way for him to buy that amount every single month, but let's keep going for now. As we talked about earlier, there's two card selling channels. He's going to sell them in store, and then after 30 days, he's going to sell them online. Now, he has said that when the cards are in store in that first 30 days, you will still be able to buy them online. Whether they'll be listed on eBay or somewhere else, not really sure. He's also going to have like cameras on these robot carts in his store where people will be able to see cards in his store. But to me, the robot camera thing isn't really going to drive a lot of sales, because I'm assuming he's not going to have like 12 different robots going up and down the aisles. And so how many cards can you actually showcase using the robot guy? And more importantly, will the robots be able to go up and down 14 football fields worth of singles every single month and see every single card? I'm going to assume not. So I think while it is interesting, and I think it's a good idea, I don't know, given the size and scope of what he's saying his shop is going to be, that's really going to put a big dent in it. Now, maybe he'll be able to sell a bunch of these online and not in store. But again, if he's saying he's going to list the cards close to market price, like, I'm not sure how much of that he'll be able to turn around every month, right? And The other thing is when you sell those cards in store, he's saying that he's going to list them, as I said earlier, he's going to list them at market value. And so he really wants to sell those cards in store because there's not going to be there's going to be no negotiation, and that's interesting. That's a whole other discussion topic, which I'm going to avoid because it's been covered a lot by other people. But between the two things, selling the cards while they're in store and selling cards while they're online after 30 days in store, you want to do the first thing because the second thing is going to lead to less revenue to CardsHQ. When you sell them in store, you're getting the full value. When you sell them online, I'm assuming that means he's going to Whatnot, Fanatics Live, or eBay, and he's going to sell at auction to turn that inventory over. That means he's probably going to get less money than if he had sold them in store, because if you sell in store, you get 100 cents on the dollar. If you sell through eBay, right away you're going to get hit with the eBay fee of, depending on how big your shop's going to be, it's going to be probably like anywhere from 5 to 13%, right? The other thing is, if you sell on Whatnot or Fanatics Live or any of these live auction services, you might get significantly less than market value because those rooms can go all sorts of different ways. But I'm going to assume if he's dumping a whole schwack of inventory onto these streams and there's like whatever 50, 100, 150 people in the room, they might not go for full market price, especially if it's anything over $100, right? And so if you want, between these two things, it's pretty clear. You want to sell the cards in store, and you want to, instead of selling cards online at auction, whether that's eBay or Whatnot Live or Whatnot or Fanatics Live. To me, that's very obvious, right? But again, the problem is he has 14 football fields worth of singles, which means selling 14 football fields worth of singles while they're in store is going to be pretty unlikely. And that means a lot of these cards are going to be pushed online after 30 days in store. And I don't think he's going to be able to do a lot in the first category, and he's going to have to do a lot in the second category. Because where is that local in-store demand going to come from? He is going from 0 to 14 football fields worth of singles overnight, basically. I don't know that you can create that demand from nothing immediately, so quickly, instantly, basically, instantaneously. And the idea or thought that comes to mind for me is COMC versus StarStock. So COMC is an online marketplace that has been built up, and their inventory being stored in their warehouse was built up over 15 and probably closer to 20 years now, right? And they did that organically, and starting small and then building it into a smaller warehouse and then a bigger warehouse, and now they've got this massive facility out in Washington. On the flip side, StarStock basically, or literally, went from not existing at all to being a online marketplace where everybody sent their cards in, and it lasted, and it was the hot thing for really during the peak of the sports card bubble during the pandemic. But once that died back down, they didn't have anything else to rely on. After that initial push and the initial hype of everybody using it, they didn't have the business that they had organically grown over time. Whereas once things slowed down from the peak, COMC still had their what I would call traditional business or organic business that they always relied upon even before the pandemic. There was this foundational layer of transactions, of business, of sales that they could rely on through the peak, and then after the peak and after things that slowed down, there was still business to be had. Whereas StarStock, once all the investor types left and disappeared, there was nobody actually wanting to use StarStock because they hadn't organically built up their business. And that's the comparison that comes to mind. ComC has 15 to 20 years almost of organic growth where people use their service and have grown, and they've grown their service and their customer base over time. StarStock tried to turn a switch on overnight and it failed. And compare that to Burbank Sports Cards. Again, they've been around since, I believe the 80s. So that's 25, 30 years, somewhere in that range. And again, they've built their business and their customer base and their inventory slowly but surely over the past few decades. And so I'm sure they did really well during the pandemic bubble, but sounds like, based off of everything you hear from the card father, Rob, like things are still doing very well, even though we are no longer at the peak of the bubble. And that's my concern for CardsHQ. They haven't spent time building up their customer base, their inventory, their processes, or streamlining the processes, and like figuring out all that stuff for a marketplace that now you're just dropping a massive inventory and massive supply of in Atlanta. And that's why the ComC StarStock comparison has me a little bit worried about the CardsHQ. Are they the LCS version of StarStock? I don't know, because Jeff is doing a bunch of interesting things at CardsHQ. He's also going to have breakers in his shop, breaking, and obviously that's a nice revenue stream. And he's got some other good ideas that are interesting and that are unique and maybe transformational. And the ultimate question is, will that other stuff be enough to offset what might be a bit of a challenge on the reselling singles side? I don't know. And maybe he's going to find a way to sell the singles and turn them around almost every month. That's going to be the challenge. And I think that's going to be his biggest challenge running the store, is being able to turn over that inventory every month and also ensuring that he gets a good enough return on being able to churn those cards every month. Will he be able to do it? I don't know. Will the other revenue streams be able to support him? Maybe, and make up for some of those other revenue streams as they work out the kinks on the single side? Maybe. I don't know. But to me, his biggest challenge will be dealing with these 14 football fields worth of singles and turning them around every month. If he's going to stick to that, I have a little bit of doubt about whether or not he's going to be able to do that, both from the selling side and also being able to replenish that inventory every month. So we'll see. But if I was Jeff, it'd be that piece, the single side, and making sure that I'm able to make money on that. Anyways, that's the video for today. Just my thoughts on the CardsHQ idea. I think it actually is an interesting idea. He's doing some new stuff there. Would love to hear your comments below as to whether or not you believe what I think is their biggest challenge is actually the biggest challenge, or if you think there is going to be another one. As we sometimes do on the channel, we will preview the next one, and going back to what I talked about earlier, we're going to talk about people buying wax. And I'm going to try to explain why people buy wax, even though everybody at this point should know full well that that is a poor investment, it is a poor ROI if you're going to rip that wax, and yet people still do. Why do they do it? Well, I'm going to give you my theory, and it's not what you think it's going to be. I guarantee you that. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching. I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.